Good morning. It's John Gilkison here. Haven't shot a video in a while, and I've been meaning to do one. Recently, we had our Ford C-Max Energi in the shop, and Ford, under warranty, put in a new BMS system. Our C-Max is a 2015, so we are contemplating trading it in or selling it next year and buying a Ford Escape plug-in hybrid electric. They're not quite out yet. They'll be out in the spring. But anyway, to refresh your memory, this top picture here is a Ford C-Max, and as you can see on the and just to the below the mirror there on the front is a port for charging it. Now, I couldn't really find any file images of a Ford Escape plug-in hybrid electric, but this is the normal variant. This is what it looks like. So they're very similar vehicles, except that the Escape, of course, is just a little larger than the C-Max. Got more interior room, more cargo room, and I think it would just be a better fit for our family. Also, it would just have newer technology. Now, I did come up with one image, and here they're showing a young lady plugging it in, but it doesn't show the whole car. So there you are. But I've been keeping records of my Ford C-Max ever since I got it. Fuel, electrical, so forth. And so I have a pretty good idea of the performance. The Ford C-Max Energi has 20 miles of electric-only range. And it turns out, astonishingly enough, that this amounts to 60% of our local driving. So we live out in the country. We live about 20-25 miles from town, so you'd never guess that, but it does. And so I've made up this table in which I compare the two vehicles side by side. So there's quite a few assumptions here, and they're not going to hold true in any one year exactly, but based on historical data, what I have is the Ford C-Max, or my new vehicle. I would generally put about 15,000 miles a year on it. Local driving would constitute 80%, regardless of which vehicle I had. I tend to travel about 20% out of that 15,000 miles. In other words, I travel about 3,000 miles a year. There'll be years where I do less, maybe some years where I'll do more. So that leaves 12,000 miles a year for local driving. So here you have it on the, it's going to be on the left there is the Ford C-Max, and it's 20 miles of electric-only range, while the new Ford Escape would have 30 miles of electric-only range. And that's because the Ford C-Max only has a 7.6 kilowatt-hour battery pack. They keep 1 kilowatt hour of that in reserve, and they have 1.1 kilowatt hours, which is used for the hybrid mode, and then the rest, 5.6, is for the electric drive only. So I've crunched a bunch of numbers. It took me a while, but hypothetically, in the same situations that the C-Max, I went on with the records, it would improve my local driving from 60% electric only driving. The new Ford Escape would improve it to 80%. So based on these assumptions, the difference is with the C-Max, I do 7,200 miles of driving in electric only mode every year. And with the new Ford Escape, I'd do 9,600 or excuse me, miles of driving. So the amount of electrical consumption uh, based on the same performance would be 3,200 kilowatt hours for the C-Max and 4,264 kilowatt hours for the Ford Escape PHEV. Now currently I'm selling power to El Paso Electric because I have solar, and my feed-in tariff's 8 cents a kilowatt hour. So I use that as my electric rate because power I use to charge the car is power I don't sell them, so it's money I lose. However, El Paso Electric now has a off-peak rate for electric cars. Um, the problem with it is it requires the installation of a meter, which could cost $500. And if I bought a new vehicle, that would probably be a good investment if I'm going to use more electric power every year. It would help to get it at a cheaper rate. And El Paso Electric would only charge me 5 cents a kilowatt hour for off-peak power. And that would be between the hours of like 10 and 6 or something. So what I'd have to do is program my vehicle to only charge between those hours, unless of course I needed it to charge it other times. However, currently I'm spending $256 a year on electricity, which amounts to $21.33 a month. In the new Ford Escape, I'd only spend, even though I'm traveling more miles and I'm using more kilowatt hours, I would only end up spending $213 a year, which amounts to $17.75. So I'd save about $3 a month. The ICE breakdown is I'm doing 4,800 miles a year with my C-Max, but I'd end up only doing 2,400 miles a year with a Ford Escape. So I'd use less gasoline. And the cost at $2.50 a gallon, which is a nice round figure to use. At 38 miles per gallon, it's costing me $315 a year to fuel my C-Max. And at 37 miles per gallon, the new Ford Escape would cost me $162 a year simply because I would only be traveling 2,400 miles versus 4,800 miles. So I would cut my miles in half. This is for local driving. Okay. So assuming 3,000 miles travel on the road, in both instances I'd be using gasoline. I'd use $197 worth of gasoline for 3,000 miles worth of travel for the C-Max, and I'd use $202 worth of gas per year for the Ford Escape. So they're very close. It's only like $5 difference for the whole year. So I totaled all this up for total gasoline costs yearly is $512 for the C-Max, which is $42.66 a month. And the total gasoline cost for the Ford Escape would be $364, which is $30.33 a month. Just about $1 a day. That's what it would cost me. So both fuels, electricity and gasoline, in the C-Max, I end up spending $764 a year for 15,000 miles. That amounts to $63.66 a month to fuel it, both fuels. And with the Ford Escape, I'd project $577 a year, which amounts to $48 basically a month. So basically I'd be saving about $15 a month with the Ford Escape over the C-Max. And I'd have more interior room, could seat people more comfortably, would travel better, could haul more groceries, so forth. It'd just be a newer vehicle. It would have better connectivity, so forth. So we're thinking very seriously about it. we would like to recycle our Ford C-Max to our daughter, try to make her a smoking deal, because right now she's driving an old um, Corolla, Toyota Corolla, and it's good for what it is. It gets about 28 miles per gallon, but she could save a shit ton of money on gasoline and reduce her carbon footprint by driving a vehicle with just even 20 miles of electric range. And we could switch over to a vehicle driving 30 miles of electric only range. So there you have it. I'm going to show you this table for a little while here. All the data is just arranged in these two columns. If you need to, you could maybe freeze the screen to get the data. And there's the bottom half of the data sheet. So we've been considering buying an all-electric car also, but the problem is we live in southern New Mexico. They have charging places for electric cars in El Paso and Albuquerque and so forth, fast chargers, but unless you own a Tesla, you really don't have good charging infrastructure out here. So, and good charging infrastructure is not that important if you're only doing local driving. You just don't need it. You can charge in your garage or at home. But if you want to travel, you literally would need to own a Tesla and live out here. The charging infrastructure is getting better, but what would happen to us is when we wanted to travel, we'd end up having to use our pickup truck, which only gets about 21 miles per gallon on the highway. And so, driving electric would lower our carbon footprint, but every time we went to travel, all of a sudden it would literally increase it. So a plug-in hybrid electric is still a good option for a lot of people. And I'd like to encourage the marketplace and PHEVs also, because plug-in hybrid electrics, because you take a Tesla Model 3 with a 75 kilowatt hour battery pack, and the amount of battery resources to make one car could make 5 Ford Escapes. And if you're doing 80% of all your local driving on electric only, then you, for all practical purposes, own an electric car. And most people don't even live as far out of town as we do, and they would even do far better. They'd probably do 90% or better. They literally would have to run the motor, the gasoline engine, occasionally, because it's programmed into the computers in the cars, to make sure you run it and you don't, it doesn't just sit there and the gas goes bad in the tank. So they have that protective programming in them. So I think PHEVs are as a technology, are greatly misunderstood by the car buying public. And if they really understood what a bargain they were and how much electric driving you could do, our C-Max was our introduction to the electric car driving market, literally. And we love it. And yes, I'd love to own a pure electric car, but I just, given my charging infrastructure out here, it's kind of problematic. So I'm going to let it go right there. I have to stop this before I reach 15 minutes. We'll see you on down the road, everybody. Take care.